Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Monday Night Travel with Rick Steves Europe. Tonight, we'll make a few of our favorite Islamic side trips. My name is Ben Green, and I'll be your moderator. And now I'd like to welcome our travel guide for this evening, Rick Steves. Merhaba, Rick.
Ben, merhaba to you too, and merhaba to everybody who's joining us. I feel like 1,000 people just slammed through the door here, and we're all going to get together and celebrate travel. This is our weekly time to enthuse about travel. It's so great to have you with us on Monday Night Travel. We've been doing this now for 35 Mondays, and I'm just really enjoying it. So thank you for being part of my weekly opportunity to get together and enthuse about travel. That's what I do in normal times, and we've been doing it during COVID as well. So make yourself at home. I hope you got your favorite travel partner with you. I hope you got something to drink and something to eat and some travel dreams to stoke. We're going to be talking about side trips from Europe into Islam. And, you know, think about this. There's more than 1 billion Christians and there's more than 1 billion Muslims on this planet. Christians generally live in what is thought of as Christendom. Europe and the United States, North America would be Christendom. And then Islam is that whole swath of the planet that is primarily Muslim, going from Malaysia all the way across to Eurasia, North Africa, until we get to Morocco. And 5 times a day, you have this call to prayer. And it's just, I always feel like it's like a global wave of praise 5 times a day, as across the Muslim world, we have the Muslim call to prayer sweeping there as fast as the world turns. We're going to be looking at little side trips from Europe. And this is nothing new for me. I was just thinking about this back when I was a kid teaching at the University of Washington. I taught in the experimental college there, and I did a whole weekend of teaching. On Saturdays, it was an all-day class about skills. On Sunday, it was an all-day class about art for travelers. And Sunday night, I had a class called TBE. TBE, it's Travels Beyond Europe. And even as a teenager, I knew the real thrills were going south from Spain to Morocco, flying from Greece to Cairo and checking out Egypt, or going across, Yugoslavia and Bulgaria and Romania and getting over there into Turkey. Today, we're going to look at my favorite Islamic side trips from Europe, and we're going to be eating a little bit of Islamic food too, because we're going to have some beautiful food cooked up by a great Moroccan restaurant in Seattle, Marrakesh restaurant. And Abraham there, who runs that restaurant, has put together some beautiful food. I hope you've got some good food. Let me share what we're going to be eating. First of all, when you go to Morocco, you got tagine. And tagine is, it's named for a pottery cooking vessel with a lid on it. And it's sort of a traditional slow cooker in Morocco. And it's slow cooking, and you've got tender meat. This happens to be lamb, and it's got all sorts of beautiful spices. It's got garlic, it's got saffron, it's got fried eggplant. Also, remember, you've got this sort of wonderful opportunity to mix it up. You can have meat or you can have fish, but you got nuts, herbs, ginger, cinnamon, saffron, and so on, and tender as can be because it is slow cooked. So I'm going to be enjoying that. You usually have that with a little bit of bread. Also, we've got some lentil soup, and lentil soup is something you will enjoy in your travels all the way across from Morocco to India. And this is sort of poor man's protein, really. The lentils disintegrate when it cooks, make this nice soup. It's usually vegetarian. They can put a little meat in it sometimes, but you've got to drink it. You don't use a spoon for the lentil soup, so I've been told. And we've got our Marrakesh salad. And this is a salad with, it's got your tomatoes and your cucumbers and your lettuce, but it's got great spices. It's got, when you think about this soup or this, you've got cumin, cilantro, parsley, garlic, black pepper, olive oil. And on the top, this is a dollop of a puree of carrot with eggplant and more spices. This is really sweet. This is our second show. I'm on my second plate of each of these things, and I can hardly wait to dig in. Something I've neglected to do on the last show was to eat my baklava. So I've got a double portion of baklava here, and I'm going to dig into that later. We'll talk about that. In Morocco, in much of Islam, you've got your tea, and usually you just got loose leaves in there, but here we've got our tea ball thing of tea leaves. So this is a green tea that is mint flavored and very, very sweet. That's good. That takes me back to Morocco right there. And something that doesn't take me back to Morocco is this ouzo. And I'm cheating here because ouzo is Greek. But if you just replace that ouzo word with raki, R-A-K-I, this is the same thing in Turkey. It's double distilled grapes with anise. And you just pop that baby open and you pour it into your little glass. And forgive me, I've been drinking this for like an hour and a half, so I may be a little bit loose. And then what we want to do is you cut it with a little bit of water. And traditionally you pour your water in and it makes it cloudy. There you go. It's a chemistry lab, and you drink it. And that is an unforgettable lab test, I'll tell you that. Okay, so that's what we're going to be eating and drinking. And right now, I want to take you, as I do each Monday, to our website. And I want to show you how we put together our playlist for the evening. If you go to ricksteves.com, that's where you can find out everything that's happening with our company. We got 100 of our workmates together, and we've just been jamming this last month because we decided to start selling tours again. We opened up the floodgates for tours. No tours in 2020, no tours in 2021. We decided to start selling tours for February 2022. A month ago, we opened up the floodgates, and I couldn't believe it. 25,000 people signed up. We were signing up 5 people a minute for 12 hours straight when we opened the door. And there are people ready to go to Europe, and we're confident it's going to be good starting in the early part of 2022. If you want to know what's going on with our tour program, click there. We've got 25,000 seats sold. We've got 3,000 or 4,000 seats still open, several hundred departures that are still available. You can check it out there. A very, very flexible sort of system with the deposits, because these are uncertain times. You can put money down, you can hold a seat, and you can get your money back for any reason at all until December 31st. So if you want to secure a tour on a Rick Steves tour for 2022, I'm telling you, now is the time to do it. But what I want to do is go down here to Classroom Europe. And this is a program we made as a gift to teachers because we love teachers. I'm so proud of my daughter. She's a high school English teacher, and teachers change the world. They are our future. And we decided to take 150 of our TV shows and break them down into 500 streamable clips so teachers can gather them together in any fun way. And that's what we're going to do. And travelers can do this too. You can just search for things by keywords and so on, but we're going to go into the themes. And we're going to look at Islam. I click there and bingo, you got 20 different clips about the Islamic world. And we're just going to click the ones we want to see. We're going to go to Cairo. Let's go to Hebron. That's the most historic part of the West Bank or Palestine. Let's go to Bethlehem, just over the wall from Jerusalem. What else do we want to see? We're not going to go to Tehran or Iran because that's not really a side trip. Let's go to Tangier, 1 hour south of Spain from the Rock of Gibraltar. We'll check out Tangier. We'll go to Turkey and check out the whirling dervishes. And I want to go to the Topkapi Palace and see that the Sultan's Ottoman splendor. So if we look now at what we have done by clicking those 6 videos, we see we've got 30 minutes of travel right there. And we can, if you're a teacher, you can give students, you can email it to your students and you can have all the assignments and everything, but we're just having fun here. And we're going to call this Islamic Side Trips. And we are going to save it. And when I do that, I have my own little locker of playlists. And that's just because anybody can do it. It's free. There's no commercials. It's just a service for people that want to teach Europe. And right there, you see what I just created, Islamic Side Trip, 6 videos, 30 minutes. So that's where we're heading, and we're going to head there right now. We're going to start out, though, with just a little bit of fun. I love this little game we play. It's a drinking game, so I hope you got your drink ready. And this is called Where's Rick? Every one of our TV shows starts with a tease. We call it a tease. And a tease is the way you get people's attention at the start of a show. Hey, I'm Rick Steves, back with more of the best of Europe. This time we're doing this and this and this because we are in... and then you reveal it. So we're going to have that pause for 5 seconds and you get to guess where we are. If you get it wrong, you got to take a drink. If you get it right, take a drink. Ooh, and we're going to get this party started. All right, so let's go. We're going to see where is Rick, and I hope that you can get these answers correct. Let's check it out. Hi, I'm Rick Steves, back with more of the best of Europe. This time, we've got buckets of mussels, the best fries in Europe with mayonnaise, monk-made beer, crunchy waffles, and dreamy chocolate. Yep, we must be. You know, I don't even care where that is. That is so good. Mussels, the best fries, waffles, great chocolate, and the best beer in Europe. It's a little country between Germany and France where they say we eat as well as the French and as hearty as the Germans. What could it be? In Belgium. Bon appetit. Hi, I'm Rick Steves, back with more of the best of Europe. This time, we're exploring a city with a distinctive culture and a flair for fashion. Freedom! You better get this right. Edinburgh. Scotland, yeah. Hi, I'm Rick Steves, back with more of the best of Europe. This time, we're enjoying the edible, drinkable, scenic, and floatable delights of one of my favorite corners of France. And I'm telling you, when I get a chance to go on a vacation, an honest to good vacation, I'm going to be on that barge cruising down that canal with my favorite travel partner. And I'm going to be so thankful my captain is a great gourmet chef as well. Where could we be? Burgundy. Thanks for joining us. Burgundy, yeah. Hi, I'm Rick Steves, back with more of the best of Europe. This time, it's beaches, caves, and Alps. Enjoying a cultural workout. Beaches, caves, and Alps. In a part of the former Yugoslavia where there's a beautiful lake and characteristic boats. I couldn't even get that boat to go. I'm just feathering those oars. The captain's keeping an eye on me there. But we are in Slovenia. Thanks for joining us. Hi, I'm Rick Steves, back with more of the best of Europe. The people here claim if you stand on a chair, you can see all across their country. By the way, I needed a chair. So I said to the crew, I'll be right back. And I went down to the farmer. You see that farm behind me there? And I knocked on his door and I said, excuse me, do you have a chair I could borrow for 20 minutes? I need to make a point. And then I put it up there and we made our point quite vividly. Where could we be? It's certainly not Norway. This is the best of the Netherlands. Thanks for joining us. All right, this is Monday Night Travel. Thank you very much for joining us. And right now we're going to Egypt. The last show we really completed before COVID hit was an amazing 1 hour in Egypt. I'm sorry, it's not very modest, but I just loved what we did in Egypt. You can watch the whole hour, but right now we're just going to do a few minutes of Cairo. We're going to be starting out on the rooftop of my hotel in this city of 20 million people. It was hard to find a peaceful place to do it on camera. The rooftop was just great, overlooking the Nile River. Cairo, straddling the Nile, is the biggest city in North Africa and the biggest in the Middle East. It's the capital of Egypt and one of the leading cities in Islam. With about 20 million people in Greater Cairo, it's bursting at the seams and pulsing with energy.
Cairo's downtown is modern and can feel European. Streets, squares, and grand buildings are reminders of the country's colonial past from the 19th and early 20th centuries. The riverfront throbs with energy, stately bridges busy with traffic, fancy riverside restaurants, and towering apartment complexes. The Nile is still the lifeblood of the city, sprawling endlessly on both sides. The heart of Cairo is Tahrir Square. It's long been ground zero for the people's spirit. If there's a demonstration going on, and there have been massive ones in recent years, it's likely here.
So I had to be really careful on this script not to be political, because their government comes down hard on journalists, especially local journalists, if they do anything that can be perceived as challenging the status quo. So here we have Tahrir Square, and it's been dolled up after the very, very intense demonstrations they had. In the background, you see the Great Egyptian Museum, the most wonderful museum, and it's surrounded by these amazing hotels. But here we are in the middle of Cairo. Really, it was so exciting, so much energy to be in Cairo.
In addition to its political energy, the city's long been a religious capital.
So we're talking about it's a great religious capital. We needed some footage that really shows off a great religious capital. And I'm coming up with it on camera right now. And I wanted to have a frame that had beautiful minarets behind me. And I had to stand on a sort of on my tiptoes on top of a bench to get this frame you're going to see. And then we had to wait a long time for the call to prayer to die down. And then we just nailed it here. I just love the challenge of finding these frames for our show with my amazing crew. Ever since the forces of Islam swept across North Africa from Arabia in the 7th century, spreading the teachings of their prophet Muhammad, Cairo has been a leading city of the Muslim world.
And today, Cairo's known as the City of 1,000 Minarets. Stepping into Al Hussein Mosque, like any neighborhood mosque, you'll find a worshipful tranquility. It's believed that resting here invigorates the soul. There's more intensity around the adjacent shrine, believed to contain a sacred relic.
So this was a little dicey because we are two Westerners that come in, clearly not Muslim worshipers here. We've got a camera and we've got our local authority and we're legal, but there's people in the church that are in the mosque that would really not rather have the camera there. But I just really wanted to show this mosque in action. So we go in very worshipfully. We've got a small camera, not our big camera. And first we scout the place and we just walk slowly around. And I just comment to Carl, my cameraman, okay, we want to get that. We want a wide shot here. We want to show people napping over there. We want to illustrate how the women are worshiping here and the men are worshiping there. And here are the relics and so on. And then I just stand back and Carl is so cool. And he shot this in such a beautiful way. I do want to remind you when you're traveling, you can go into holy places, regardless of if you are of that faith or any faith at all, as long as you just fold your hands and are respectful. I find that you can go into mosques and synagogues and churches in your travels if you're just respectful. And I love to be able to share not a mosque that is just a piece of architecture, but a mosque or a place of worship that is in action, doing what it was built to be doing, like we see right here.
The head of Al-Hussein ibn Ali, a grandson of the Prophet Muhammad. In a mosque, men and women worship separately. As praying can be physical, with lots of bending over, it's considered more respectful to allow women their own space. I find that a respectful tourist is welcome to be a part of the scene. Along with minarets, you'll see church spires, especially in Cairo's Coptic quarter. While Egypt is predominantly Muslim, today about 10% of the country is Christian. The Egyptian or Coptic church actually predates Islam by 6 centuries.
So it's so interesting for me when I'm working with the crew. We only have so much time and we were slotted in to visit this church at a certain hour, and you really can't control when you're going to get there with the traffic jams and the security delays and so on. And I'm just hoping there's some action in the church. We came there and it was just dead. It was horrible and we had to shoot it and that was kind of it. But I always give the crew, whenever possible, a day on their own after I'm on my way. And they have a short list of little extra credit shots that we'd like to get to make the show a little more vivid. And on that list was coming back to this Coptic church and hopefully finding it in action. And the guys got up early and I'm on an airplane flying somewhere else. And they had the whole day to get some beautiful stuff. And this is what they got even before breakfast. And it just really helped the show.
Because they worship in an Orthodox style, stepping into a Coptic mass is like going back in time. The faithful believe that when Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus escaped Herod by fleeing to Egypt, this very spot is where they took refuge. Later, in 43 AD, it's believed the evangelist Mark came to Egypt and established the Coptic Church. Mark was their first pope, and the first in an unbroken line of Coptic popes stretching back nearly 2,000 years. The Coptic quarter comes with high security. Throughout Egypt, travelers will notice armed guards, security barriers, and a high-profile police presence. These are reminders of a pent-up tension in Egyptian society. They reveal the challenges Egyptian democracy faces today.
So we have a chance now to take a look at something that I just love, to kind of go back and see how we filmed 20 years ago, 25 years ago. We were in Egypt, I think in 1999. That's when I first worked with my producer, Simon. And then we went back in 2019, I guess it was, yeah, to film. And I like to get kind of clips that show the old square standard definition and the new wide angle and the beautiful high def. It used to be 4:3, now it's 9:16. The screen you're looking at probably right now, it's the same. It's the same sort of you got the peripheral vision, the same shape of our vision biologically from the way our faces are designed. It makes more sense to have wide screen. I'm going to show you a little clip that was from the old days, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, something like that. And it's square, and you'll see the black strips on the corners. And then you'll see me aging just like that, 20 years. And then I say the same thing because we had to redo the show because things change, but the information doesn't change and the technology does. So you can see it old and new and get a little look at how some of the information stays the same, but some of the other things do change. Let's check out this little bit. It's called Then and Now.
Join us now as we discover the ins and outs of travels in Europe.
To the ancient Egyptian, it seemed logical. You live on the east bank where the sun rises,
And bury your dead on the west bank where the sun dies each evening.
ironically, rather than protect the tombs, the pyramids actually attracted thieves. Again and again.
Again and again, pyramids were looted, and pharaohs were waking up in heaven with absolutely nothing.
Religion permeated Egyptian society. As long as things were going reasonably well, the gods must be happy. Status quo.
As long as things were going reasonably well, the gods were happy, and it was status quo.
Every year the Nile would flood, bringing water and fertile silt to the land. If the gods were happy, the people had food. And you don't change things.
When the gods are happy, the people have food, and you don't change things.
You know, I just got to say, for some reason, I'm in a really good mood. Part of it is Monday night travel. Just so thankful you're here watching. It's so cool with this technology to be able to do this. Some of it might be my Rocky. But I think what it really is tomorrow I'm going on my first airplane ride in a year and a half. That's pretty exciting for me. And today I booked my flight to Europe. I'm going to Europe in about a month, and I'm going to hike around Mount Blanc on a little tour. I'm excited about that. Also, with our staff, we've decided we're going to go to Europe later on in the fall with a mentoring tour. I get to lead a tour with our lead guide and somebody from our tour operations department. And we're going to have 20 new guides that are apprenticing to be Rick Steves tour guides as we go forward, because we've got a lot of people that want to take our tours. And I want to personally travel with our guides to make sure they know exactly how I like to do the tours. So that's going to be an exciting opportunity. And another thing that's exciting that's going to happen in 2021 later on this year is we've decided to offer our guides their winter bonding time fun in Turkey. Talk about an Islamic side trip. We've got a 13-day tour of Turkey, and we book it from our friends in Turkey, and we fill it up with our guides, and we help make the tour affordable for them. And they have a great time in the winter when there's no tours going on, doing a little traveling themselves in a place a lot of them don't know, and that is Turkey. So there's lots going on. I guess that's why I'm kind of excited right now. Hey, we're going to go now to Palestine. And in the Holy Land, you've got Israel and you've got Palestine. It's about 12 million people. Out of the 12 million people, I think this is ballpark, but 8 million live in Israel. And 6 million live in Israel. What is it? There's 8 million live in Israel and 4 million live in Palestine. Of those 12 million people, half of them are Israeli Jews and half of them are Arab Muslims. There are a couple million Arab Muslims in Israel proper, and then there are 4 million Arab Muslims in Palestine. So it's a very interesting and tight little area. And if you go to Israel, I just think it's really important that you see both sides of the wall and take a side trip into the West Bank. I call it Palestine because I think it's a country that's been there for a long time, and it's a country that deserves its independence. And you can't understand the situation when you got that wall and you got all the stress between the Israelis and the Palestinians without going to both sides and hearing both narratives. A dual narrative approach to the Holy Land is critical. And in order to do that, you need a good guide. We're going to be in Palestine coming up right now in a moment. Our guide is a guy named Kamal. and you can work with him if you like. It costs $200 to have a local Palestinian English-speaking, highly educated guide who has a car. $200 all day long with your expert friend from Palestine with a car. That's an amazing thing. Cross the wall from Jerusalem to Bethlehem. You can bicycle from the place Christians believe Jesus was born to where he was crucified in 20 minutes. It's that close together, but it's got a wall separating them. And that wall is a big deal if you're a Palestinian or Israeli. But if you're a tourist, you can just go across quite easily. Go into Bethlehem, that's in Palestine, sleep there, hire a guide for a day, and everything's very close together. And you can then, in your guide's car, go out and see the countryside and come back to Bethlehem. If you want to learn more about that, we have links to our favorite guides in Palestine. It's nothing we do, but we've just got guides we've worked with that we really like in the chat section. Right now, you can go there and check it out. And also, if you'd like to know more about Muslim faith, I did. And I met this guy named George, who is really cool. He's Pakistani Muslim American, and he teaches, he's a Christian, but he's Pakistani and he understands Islam. And he teaches a great lecture on Islam. And I wanted to share it on our website. You have a link to that right there in the chat section. So check out the links right now. Join me as we venture into Palestine.
As if rising out of those ancient olive groves, the ancient town of Hebron, with over 200,000 people, is the largest city in the West Bank. And it's the bustling commercial capital with nearly a third of the entire West Bank economy. Just strolling the streets, dodging cars, and mixing with the people, I feel the energy of an economy that seems primed to grow. Commerce spills out everywhere. Exploring the market streets, I'm immersed in Palestinian life. Experiences like these are why we travel.
Along with all the market activity and commerce comes high security and tension. That's because this city has the tomb of Abraham, so sacred to both Israelis and Palestinians.
Here, Jews live literally atop Palestinian Muslims as the two communities struggle to be near Abraham's tomb. While the city is mostly Palestinian, a determined community of several hundred Israeli settlers have staked out the high ground living in a settlement above the market. The tension between the communities is illustrated by a wire net that protects the Arab food and clothing market below from the garbage of the Jewish residents above. Israeli troops are posted here to maintain control. Turnstiles and checkpoints are a way of life. A no man's land with Jewish political art decorating closed buildings divides the two communities. And it's all about this very sacred and complicated site. An ancient structure capped by a medieval church which now functions both as a mosque and a synagogue, holding the tombs of Abraham and his family. The focal point for both faiths is this, the tomb of Abraham. Poignantly, access for the feuding descendants of Abraham is divided by a pane of bulletproof glass. On one side of the glass, Jews worship in the synagogue, the second most holy place in Judaism. It's enlivened with singing, studying, and praying among the tombs of their great patriarchs. And the other half is a mosque, where Muslims worship before their shared patriarch with equal fervor. Its exquisite minbar, where the imam stands to give sermons, is a rare original from the 12th century, with inlaid wood and no nails. Unfortunately, this holy place's history has a tragic aura.
For centuries, Jews were generally not allowed to worship here. Then, after the Israeli victory in the War of 1967, the space was shared by Jews and Muslims. But during a Muslim service in 1994, an Israeli settler entered here with his gun and killed 29 Palestinian worshippers. Since then, this holy space has been divided, emblematic of the difficult challenges that permeate the Holy Land.
So I got to say, I was really impressed at how accessible this was. It seems like they'd have more security. Of course, they've got security on each side, but as a visitor, as a traveler, as a tourist, as a TV host, you can walk in and you can check out the synagogue and you can check out the mosque and you can see people worshiping on both sides of Abraham's tomb. 4,000 years ago, he died there. And you see the bulletproof glass that separates these two communities. Wow. Everything I just showed you, you can do when you go to Hebron. You can do it as a day trip from Bethlehem quite easily. There's some tension there though. And I've spliced in just a little clip that I shot on my iPhone when I was there scouting, or when I was there with the crew. And it just gives you a look at what it's like to be in the no man's land there between the two communities.
Hi, I'm Rick Steves, and I'm in Hebron right now. I'm on a street that is sort of the empty street, the dead street. And we're filming here. And Carl's, the crew's there, and they're getting me. And there's this amazing thing. But what I really like... Yeah, hi.
I have to ask you not to take pictures of the guard stations.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. We asked him first, but he says okay, but we won't. You guys, we shouldn't take pictures of the guard station. But I like the art here. This is beautiful. This one here. Okay, thank you. And this is kind of cool because it shows the situation. And you know, there's street art all over the place here. And it's a very complicated city, Hebron. It's complicated because it's the tomb of Abraham's here, and Abraham's really important for the Jews and the Muslims. And God, there's just a tension right here. But you can come here yourself and learn more about it. I'm Rick Steves. This is Travel. Ciao. Just across the Israel-Palestine border from Jerusalem stands Bethlehem. Like border towns between rich and poor lands all over the world, each day workers with special passes cross the wall from here for higher-paying jobs in the far more affluent Israel. While most Palestinians can't cross, foreign visitors generally breeze right through. As long as times are calm, the West Bank's wide open for the adventurous traveler. You don't need a visa, currency's the same as Israel, good guidebooks lead the way, and you certainly won't find any tourist crowds.
So when I did this, it really reminded me of going from San Diego to Tijuana. Same kind of big, aggressive wall, same kind of pretty pronounced difference between how wealthy people are on one side and how poor they are on the other side. There's a tenfold difference in the per capita income between Israel on the other side of the wall and Palestine here. I mean, tenfold. If somebody makes 30,000 in Israel, they make 3,000 in Palestine. I was nervous at first, but it's amazing how comfortable you get after just a day, realizing that, yeah, this is a beautiful and welcoming place to travel, Palestine.
Taxis await just across the wall, and in minutes, we're in Bethlehem. No longer just the little town of Christmas Carol fame, Bethlehem is a leading Palestinian city. While beloved among Christians as the place where Jesus was born, it's now a predominantly Muslim town. Its thriving old center is a classic Arab market. The main square bustles with commerce. And the traffic circle comes with a memorial to locals doing time in Israeli prisons. Here, immersed in a sea of Palestinian people going about their daily lives, preconceptions can be challenged. Bethlehem's skyline is a commotion of both crescents and crosses, a reminder that the town, while now mostly Muslim, still has many Christians. While all Palestinians are Arabs, not all Palestinians are Muslims. In fact, many are Arab Christians. Nativity Square marks the center of Bethlehem. The Church of the Nativity is built upon the spot believed to be where Jesus was born.
And for 90% of the visitors to Palestine, all they see is this square. These, biblical tour groups come in, they see all good stuff from the Bible in Israel, and then they make this nervous beeline into Palestine because they have to see the Church of the Nativity. They have time here for an ice cream or something, check out the church, and then they go back to safety in Israel. It's a shame. You really need to spend the night, and you really need to get a dual narrative approach. Anytime there's a wall, there's two stories. And if you're trying to figure out that wall, like the wall that separates Israelis and Palestinians, if you don't hear both stories, you don't know what's going on. Of course, you got to hear both stories because each story will have its own bias.
Inside, you feel the history. Emperor Constantine, the first Christian Roman emperor, had this church built in 326. The mosaic floor of that original 4th century church is about 3 feet below today's floor. In the 12th century, that's 800 years later, Crusaders ornamented much of the nave with paintings and mosaics. A steady stream of pilgrims and tourists come here from all across Christendom to remember that first Christmas and to pray on the spot where tradition says Jesus was born.
Many assume that Palestinian or Arab Christians were converted in modern times, but in fact their Christian roots go all the way back to the time of Christ. By the way, a century ago, about 20% of all Palestinians were Christian. Today, that number is down to less than 2%, and most of those live here in Bethlehem.
Along with Christians, Muslims are also drawn to this holy site. In fact, for over 1,000 years, a mosque has stood just across the square facing the Church of the Nativity. It's Friday, and Muslims have gathered to pray.
It's a holy city.
We're joined by my friend and local guide, Kamal Mukarkar, to get the most out of this opportunity to better understand Palestine and its people.
So there's churches, but there's mosques also in Bethlehem.
Bethlehem.
So this is so cool to have a friend like this. And again, it costs you about $100 a day without a car or $200 a day with a car. And you've got a friend who's knowledgeable, who speaks English, who is well connected. It is so important. Once again, if you are going to the Holy Land, we've got our favorite guides listed in Israel and in Palestine in a link today in the chat section. Also, I want to remind you there's a place in there that's in the chat section, a link to a charitable organization in the United States called Bright Stars of Bethlehem. And they support a cultural center run by the Lutheran bishop there in Bethlehem. Mitri Raheb is the guy's name. And we stayed in their hotel and we witnessed what they're doing in their community. And we've helped to build their library, our staff at Rick Steves Europe, because we've helped to support them in their construction project. But if you want to sleep in Bethlehem, and if you want to learn more about that, you can stay in that center. And also, if you want to support the work they're doing to help weave together the different communities in Palestine, it's a beautiful, beautiful organization. It's called the Bright Stars of Bethlehem. And you can see the link in the chat section today on this broadcast.
It's a very holy city for the Muslims as well as the Christians. For the Muslims, Jesus is their second important prophet. They also believe in Mary. They worship her. She has a whole section in the Quran just named after her.
A whole book in the Quran named after Mary.
Yes, exactly. And that's why she's very important for them.
Kamal coaches a girls' basketball team.
1, 2, 3.
His stars are both Christians and Muslims, and we're rooting them on.
يلا شوتي.
After the game, we're dropping by Kamal's place to meet his family and enjoy an evening together. It's typical in Palestinian culture that many generations live under the same roof. We're meeting Kamal's mother, fiance, his sister, and her children. After some good conversation in the living room, Kamal's mother calls us to the dinner table. She's cooked up a classic local stew.
Hey, can you explain, Kamal, what are we having here?
We are having a tajin,
Yeah.
which is so many different kind of vegetables, starting with potatoes, zucchini, aubergines, and pepper.
And what kind of meat?
Beef.
I think it's impossible for a traveler to be hungry in Palestine.
Yes.
The food just keeps on coming.
Yes, and you have to keep something in your plate,
Yeah.
because if you don't keep something in your plate, food, you will get another time food.
People think that you're still hungry.
No wonder, because I'm gaining weight. I need 2 airplane seats to fly home.
As I've learned over and over, getting into a home reminds me how much people everywhere have in common. And sharing a meal gives a wonderful insight into the everyday lives of new friends in faraway places.
I think this is a beautiful, beautiful welcome here.
صحتين.
And what is that?
Bon appetit.
Saten.
صحتين.
Translated, it's cheers to your health twice. 2 times for your health.
2 times for your health. Saten. That's beautiful.
Wow. I am so privileged to be able to sit at that table and get to know that family and still to be friends with them. And you can too. if you venture into places where there's not that many tourism and just get to know the locals. Hey, they were serving a tagine, and I'm eating a tagine too, thanks to our friends at Marrakesh restaurant in Seattle. Abraham's the guy who runs it. Great stuff. You know, they slow cook it in that earthenware pot, and it is so tender. Look at all the bones just fell off. I mean, they literally just, you've heard of that saying, you know, just falls off the bones. That's what it did right here. And what it left is the amazing sauce. And that's why you have bread with it. And if you just think of the saffron and the ginger and the nuts and the herbs and the cinnamon, all the beautiful spices that comes with this Moroccan food. It's really nice. I got to save some appetite for my baklava. Hey, I want to remind you, we couldn't do Monday Night Travel without our team. We got Ben Green. We got Julianne Worden. She's helping out in the Q&A section right now. We got Lisa and we got Gabe. So I'm very thankful for our crew. I'm very thankful for all of you for tuning in every Monday. I want to remind you, all of these clips you're seeing are excerpted from half-hour TV shows. If you want to see the entire show, it sort of kind of hurts me to be pausing all the time, but I like to talk so much, I get over it and I keep pausing. If you want to see the show uninterrupted, of course you can. You go to ricksteves.com into the TV section and check it out. Also, I want to remind you, we're going to have a chance to answer questions. Your questions coming up. Ben is going to organize all those, and in a few minutes, we will be answering your questions. And if you'd like to add something in the Q&A section that's just your favorite experience or destination in Islamic side trips from Europe, we'd love to hear your experience as well. Okay, now I'm going to eat more of this Moroccan food as we go from the Rock of Gibraltar in southern Spain, about an hour south to Morocco. And if you've got 5 or 6 days in southern Spain and you wonder what to do with an extra day, leave Spain, go to Morocco. It is the most exciting day. Even Tangier. Tangier is used to be called the armpit of Africa. It's not the greatest city to see. It's sort of like Tijuana. I mean, if you had one day in Mexico and it's Tijuana, it's a lot better than another day in California. If you got one day in Morocco, if you got one day in Africa and it's Tangier, it's a lot better than another day in Spain. And I'm going to show you why right now. So let's go on the boat from Gibraltar in the south of Spain over to Africa, Morocco.
For me, Tarifa's top attraction, the fast boat to Morocco. Several boats a day make the intercontinental trip in about an hour. Tickets are easy. All you need is a few euros and your passport. The Strait of Gibraltar is where seas, continents, and cultures collide. Fishing, shipping, and movement of peoples. This narrow stretch of water has seen it all. And it's here that Islam and Christendom come together like cultural tectonic plates.
Over the centuries, this narrow passage has witnessed lots of turmoil. 8th century Muslim Moors sweeping north. Then in 1492, those same Moors retreating south, making this very same voyage. Today, wealthy Europe has invited back the people of North Africa to harvest its crops and do its low-end work. And today, as anywhere, with all this back and forth, there are both challenges and opportunities.
I just want to remind you, it's an amazing spot. When you sit on top of the Rock of Gibraltar, it's the only place I understand in the whole world where you can see 2 continents and 2 seas coming together. Right there, cultures, land, sea. I just love being there and thinking about all the history and all the culture and all the tension and all the fertility and all the action that's happened in so many ways. And then to cross that strait on this ferry and land in Morocco, it's a beautiful day.
Independent travelers walk right off the boat and into Tangier. The busy port seems to pump life into the city. It's an intense scene. Tangier had long been considered a charmless and dangerous place. But today that's changed, and this city is becoming a proud showcase of the new Morocco. Like so many Moroccan cities, Tangier is split in 2, its old tangled Arab quarter and a new French colonial quarter. While new town buildings feel distinctly European, it's immediately evident that this is North Africa. Tangier's new town faces its fine beach. The broad stretch of sand is treated as a park by locals, ideal for a quiet stroll or some exuberant gymnastics. And what better place for some barefoot soccer? a grand boulevard parallels the beach. It's named for Morocco's popular king, Mohammed VI, the man whose policies have given Tangier its new vitality.
Throughout the mid-20th century, Tangier was considered too strategic to be controlled by any one country. It was therefore jointly governed by the European powers. It attracted playboy millionaires, spies, romantics, and scoundrels. Because of its Western orientation, the previous Moroccan king essentially disowned the city, leaving it dispirited and neglected.
But when the king was crowned in 1999, this was the first city he visited. His vision? To make Tangier a leading city once again. And it's well on its way. In the early evening, Moroccans hit the streets and stroll as people do across the Mediterranean world. Amid all the new, old ways do persist. Cafe sitting and people watching remains a mostly old boys' pastime. Once Tangier's main square, the Grand Soko stands like a referee between the new and old towns.
I want to remind you, this is a rare case where English is not the second language. Of course, Arabic is the first language, and the second language, because of its colonial heritage, is French. So English comes in at number 3. Still, when you cross over, you can manage fine because there's a lot of tourism there and a lot of people speak enough English to help you out or sell you things in their markets.
A few years ago, this was a pedestrian nightmare and a perpetual traffic jam. Today, this smart square is emblematic of the new Tangier.
Visiting this revitalized city lifts my spirits. I see a society that's neither pro-West nor anti-West. It's just people making the best of life. It's becoming more modern and affluent on its own terms.
From the Grand Soko, a medieval wall encircles the old town. Passing through the gate, you enter a labyrinthian wonderland. The old town is delightfully disorienting. When exploring on my own, I just wander, knowing that uphill will eventually get me to the castle or kasbah, and downhill will eventually lead me back to the port.
That's a very important tip, by the way. Navigate by altitude. In so many cases, when you're dealing with these Muslim town labyrinthine market areas, the souk, you get lost. There's no grid plan at all. You don't know where the heck you are. But if you remember, if you came in at the bottom, you keep going uphill until you're done exploring, and then you work your way downhill all the way till you find the place where you came in.
Expect to get a little lost. Going around in circles is part of the fun. You can visit Tangier on your own, or you can take a tour. Most visitors take a tour, day tripping in from Spain for a predictable series of experiences. They get their shopping opportunities and a few set-up photo ops. Snake charmers turn on the charm. Hustlers hustle for tips. And folkloric musicians strike up the band. For lunch, tour groups sit together in Alibaba elegance to enjoy a meal with more local music. And then they follow their guide single file back down to their waiting ferry past one last gauntlet of merchants hungry for a sale.
So that's pretty touristic. I mean, that is actually hard to enjoy, I gotta be honest, but it's easy. And when you take that one-day trip down from Spain, you'll notice the round-trip ferry ride cost about the same as the round-trip ferry ride plus the one-day tour, because they want you. They want you in their control so they can sell you stuff and get their kickback and keep you in their control until you run out of time and you go back onto the ship to go back to Europe. I love to go down there and take a tour if you want to, just to check off all the, the cliches, but then ditch the tour and spend the night. I love to spend the night in Tangier. And as soon as the people get back on that ship and they go back to Europe, all of a sudden the town changes its personality. The people have made their money, the tourists are gone, and you're a traveler. You're a traveler, you're right there enjoying the moment. The magic of Morocco is after the tourists have gone back to Spain. And I enjoy the luxury also of hiring a local guide to take you around. We're going to meet Aziz, a friend of mine in Tangier here. And Aziz just knows just where to go to lace together a whole bunch of amazing slices of local life. Check this out.
Trippers are back on their boats and heading home to Europe. It seems there's hardly a tourist left in Tangier. That's why I like to spend the night. Wandering is fun, but to enjoy it with maximum understanding, you can hire a local guide. I'm joining up with my friend and fellow tour guide, Aziz Begdouri.
These guys are day workers ready to work. A painter ready to paint. Plumber ready to plumb. Electrician ready to wire. So the community works together. If you don't have a phone in the house, you use the phone centers. And we use the community baths, which are called the hammams. And here's the community oven. It's a bakery.
Like the bakery, okay.
This is the oven for the community. So the families make bread every day in their home and bring the dough here to be baked. They pay him for a small fee, depends on loaves of bread they bring. So they pay him for a day or for a week or a month. That's why they have fresh bread every day.
And it's more than just bread.
Yeah, apart from the bread, they bring fish to be roasted. Also, they bring tagines, who are the stew of lamb or chicken, and they bring homemade cookies, and also to roast the peanuts, almonds, sunflower seeds, cashews, all of that. How's it taste?
It's very good.
The old town is spinning with traditional artisans, and Aziz knows just which passage to duck into to witness cottage industries trapped in time.
Here are the weavers. They're still working the same way as their parents and grandparents. So this is real crafts and arts that these people have learned from generation to generation. They're very happy to continue doing it. They have the patience, they have the skill, and they do it from their heart.
And mosaics are created the same way, by hand and without the precision of modern machinery.
So how does he know where to chip?
He has a design in his head, and he's working on it. And that way he knows what he's going to create. And all the designs are geometric designs because the Muslims, they don't do faces and images. And that's very Islamic art. For the Muslims, only Allah is perfect. For us, the fact that it is not perfect is part of the beauty.
There's a beautiful excuse. If you screw up, if you flub, own it. Only God is perfect. That's a matter of respect when you make that little tiny defect.
In the market, wander past piles of fruit, veggies, olives, and stacks of fresh bread. You'll find everything but pork. Today, the Berber women have come in from nearby mountains with wheels of fresh goat cheese wrapped in palm leaves. The fish market is clean, slippery, and full of life. Because Tangier is a city on two seas, the Mediterranean and the Atlantic, fish is a big part of the local diet. And it's no surprise, Aziz is taking me to a restaurant that serves only fish. There's no menu, just sit down and let them bring on the food. The sink in the room is for locals who prefer to eat with their fingers. It's fish soup, tangine spinach with shrimp, baby calamari and swordfish, and the catch of the day, John Dory.
John Dory, eating with your fingers, it's an option. In a restaurant like that, local people wash up and eat with their fingers. I'll never forget a story I like to tell. I met a guy in Afghanistan who told me in the restaurant, a third of the people on the planet eat with spoon and fork like you, a third of the people with chopsticks, and a third with their fingers, and we're all civilized just the same. Check it out. In a restaurant where the locals are eating with their fingers, you can do it too. Now we're going to go to Turkey. And I'm just so excited that traveling is opening up again. Turkey is where I was going to fly when I had to cancel my flights for Europe when COVID hit, and I'm going to get back there as soon as I can. Let's go.
Today's Turkish culture is shaped by a complicated history. Ancient Greece and then Rome from the west swept in and established a culture that led to the Byzantine Empire. Eventually, Muslim Seljuks from the east ended Christian Byzantine rule. Then the Ottomans stormed in and ruled until World War I, when the father of modern Turkey, Ataturk, established the Turkish Republic. While the Republic is secular, the vast majority of Turks are Muslim.
Turkey is filled with over 75 million people. They come in many ethnicities, and after thousands of years of exposure as a crossroads between Europe and Asia, it's quite a mix. Faces tell the story.
You know me, I love these face montages. I'm a people watcher. When I'm in Europe, just park me on a corner and I'm going to watch those people come by. In Turkey, you've got this amazing festival of diversity, so many different ethnicities, so many different cultures, so many different people in different stages of their lives. And I'm eating baklava as I'm watching this. What could be better? This is great baklava. And within 100 yards of any of these people, I would imagine you've got a baklava shop to spice up your people watching. Look at these people and imagine the joy of gaining an affinity and empathy for 70 million Turks who you would never know, never meet, never appreciate if you didn't travel there.
The landscapes of this vast country are as diverse as the people it supports. Distances are long, traffic is sparse, and the roads are great. This is Konya, one of the most conservative and religious towns in Western Turkey. For many Turks, this town's a bit too orthodox, but I'm looking for all sides of Turkey, and Konya is a fascinating stop.
So I said, for many Turks, this town's a bit too orthodox. The fact is, modern Turks, Turks that are committed to the separation of mosque and state, just like we are committed to pluralism and the separation of church and state, they're seeing their society change. One reason I was going to go to Turkey on the flight I had to cancel when COVID hit, I wanted to check in with Erdogan and how Turkey is progressing. My Turkish friends, and I go there every other year or something like that and check in on it, they are very disturbed about how more and more women are wearing scarves and more of the determination to keep mosque and state separate is eroding. And here we see that. And in Konya, it's the most conservative religious town in all of Turkey. So for modern Turks, this is a town that makes them very anxious.
This city of 1 million people is one of the oldest in the world, with known settlements dating back 8,000 years.
The city has an illustrious history. Back in the 1st century, when Konya was called Iconium, the Apostle Paul visited several times. And during its heyday in the 13th century, Konya was the capital of the Muslim Seljuk Empire.
Strolling the streets, you experience the contrasts of the old and the new. It's a university town with a fine park, ideal for young couples enjoying a little private time. And wandering into its back streets, much of the traditional side of Turkey survives, and the orthodoxy of Konya becomes more apparent. For instance, nearly all women wear scarves. The huge produce hall is busy with people picking up locally grown fruits and vegetables. In the hubbub of the crowded streets, browsing can be endlessly entertaining. Boys with trays of tea or chai scurry from shop to shop. Remember, travelers have a richer experience when they make a point to connect. Drink some tea. The barber shop is still a great way to catch up on all the gossip. The finale, spanking with a flame, leaving you smooth as you've ever been. And poking into unusual shops, you'll be surprised at what you may learn.
So this is a skill for you travelers that want to have a more vivid experience. You've got to make it happen. You got to go into the barbershop and spend a couple bucks and get your face spanked with a flame. If you see a guy who outfits shepherds, go in there and fantasize about being a shepherd. That's what I'm going to do right now.
Turns out this place is a one-stop shop for shepherds.
So I'm a shepherd, sitting here in the elements.
Lunchbox.
Ah, this is my backpack. I have to have a flute. Perfect. Do you take credit cards?
Credit cards oluyor musunuz?
Okay. It's a good deal.
Konya is the home of Mevlana, also known as Rumi, a 13th century Muslim philosopher who preached a message of love. His tomb is the focus of many pilgrims visiting from throughout Islam. Under beautiful domes, the tombs of Mevlana, his family, and earliest followers are venerated. Pondering the tomb of their great teacher, pilgrims remember his message, which focused on connecting the powerful love of God with us on earth. Mevlana said, "I looked for God in all the temples, mosques, and churches, and found him in my heart." The adjacent museum explains Mevlana's teaching with a display of significant writings, books of poetry, and historic copies of the Quran.
Mevlana attempted to distill the message of the Quran into a pure and simple anthem of love. His teaching was a mystical interpretation of mainstream Islam, and his followers, called dervishes, have dedicated their lives to living out that Mevlana or Rumi philosophy.
Mevlana's dervishes whirl themselves into a meditative trance. While raising one hand toward heaven, the other toward earth, they symbolically plant one foot upon the Quran, the Muslim word of God, while the other walks through all the world. One hand rises up, as if to accept the love of God. The other goes palm down, showering the love of our Creator on all humanity. As he whirls, the dervish transcends our material world, becoming a conduit between the love of God and his creation. Wherever you travel in Turkey, you'll find opportunities to witness this mesmerizing form of prayer. It's a good example of the many facets of Islam, a powerful religion that perhaps we can take the initiative to better understand.
You know, it is such a challenge in our travels to have an open mind about things. And it's easy to look at some things that just seem so different and so hard to understand. It's hard to respect it. But we really have to be careful that we're not in a judgmental frame of mind. There are 1 billion Muslims on this planet that embrace this thinking. And if you're not a Muslim, it's an opportunity when you go to a Muslim country to gain a respect for it. This is our challenge as tour guides, and it's your challenge as a thoughtful traveler, is to find something that seems hard to understand and hard to appreciate, and then understand it on its own terms in its own context. Next, we're going to go to Istanbul. And Istanbul is one of my favorite cities anywhere in the world. I mean, there's 4 cities in Europe in our tour program that deserve a 1-week tour: London, Paris, Rome, and Istanbul. And Istanbul really is, I mean, for 400 years, it was the leading city in Christendom. All through the dark ages of Europe, it was Istanbul that was the great city. Today, it's where East meets West, and it is a thrill to be there. It's really fun to be able to take you to Istanbul.
Istanbul's been a busy trading center from the start, so it needed to be well protected. This imposing wall helped fortify the ancient Byzantine capital. The wall sealed off the city, protecting it on the one side where the water didn't. Dating from the 5th century, these ramparts stood strong against both Catholic Europe from the west and the Muslim forces from the east, until 1453.
Finally, the Ottoman Turks, who for centuries had been on the rise and chipping away at the Byzantine Empire, broke through the walls. They established the city as the capital of their growing empire and transformed Christian Constantinople into a Muslim city.
Our storybook image of the Ottomans, sultans, harems, eunuchs, is best imagined here in the Topkapi Palace. Built in the late 15th century, this was the power center of the Ottoman Empire for almost 400 years. Its buildings form a series of courtyards, the outer being used for public functions. The further in you go, the more private the rooms. Among the most private was the harem. The word harem means forbidden in Arabic. It's the huge suite where the Sultan lived with his wives, female slaves, and children.
This is the largest room in the harem. It was the entertainment room and used for activities like the wedding of the Sultan's daughters. This was the divan that the Sultan used, his throne. The divans by the window were used by the Queen Mother and the wives of the Sultan, and the musicians used the balcony up above. But when I say a party, do not imagine a public event. It was rather for the family of the Sultan.
So just a small family affair. The Sultan, his mom, his wives, and his girlfriends.
His favorites. The whole purpose of the harem was to provide future heirs to the throne, to the Ottoman throne. But most of the tourists think that it was a party place, a fantasy place. It was not. It was an institution. It had its own rules. It was very well regulated, and these rules were very strict. The Sultan was not above these rules.
So the Sultan didn't just come in and pick a girl?
Definitely not. It was the Queen Mother, mother of the Sultan, mostly, that decided what should happen in the harem. And it was again the Queen Mother that decided whom the Sultan socialized with.
Well, so much for our Hollywood image of a harem. I guess it just was a practical way to be sure you had a good heir to the throne. Things you learn when you travel. I hope you've enjoyed our look at Islam, side trips from Islam. And now let's go back to Ben and see if we have any questions.
Thank you so much, Rick. And before we get to some excellent questions, how about a word from our sponsor?
Well, thank you, Ben. Yeah, the big news for us, our sponsor, Rick Steves Europe, is that we now have tours up and running. We are selling tours, and all of us are feeling a little bit of a energy from this, aren't we, Ben? It's been a lot of work. As I mentioned, last month we opened the floodgates. We had a lot of people chomping at the bit to take a Rick Steves tour, and we sold 25,000 tours, 25,000 seats in just a couple of days. We've still got 3,000 or 4,000 seats open for next year. But if you're interested in checking out a Rick Steves tour, go to our website, ricksteves.com, go to the tour section, and then look around. There's so much information in there. And if you want, you can organize the tour date departures for 2022 in order of seats available. That's a little less frustrating because 80% of the tours are full. But we still have a couple hundred tours with seats open. And if you want to get a chance to take a Rick Steves tour in 2022, you shouldn't wait too long. I do want to remind you, we understand this is kind of a little bit of an unpredictable time. So we're being very, very flexible, more than normal with the deposits. You can make a deposit and lock up a seat, and you can get that deposit back for no questions asked for any reason at all until December 31st. So if you're curious and you want to keep your options open, check it out, grab a tour. Also, I want to remind you that we've got links for today's presentation. We don't really take groups much to Islam. We take groups to Turkey and Istanbul, and we do have seats open for both of those tours. But if you're curious of traveling in any of the other places, to Egypt, to Morocco, to the Holy Land, we've got links in the chat section, and there you can connect with people that we trust and that we've worked with. And we just are happy to be a connector so you can put your travel dreams into smooth and affordable reality. Ben, let's have some questions.
All right, Rick. First question relates to actually what you were just speaking about. We have two great Turkey tours. And I think people are curious, Rick, how did Turkey enter into the Rick Steves Europe family of tours? What first brought it to your attention, and why are there tours there and not the other destinations?
That's a very good question. I've always had an affinity for Turkey. I just love going to Turkey. When I was a kid, I went to Turkey. I went to for like 8 years in a row when I was in my 20s, when I was doing backpack trips with the Euro pass without a business to be concerned about. For 8 years in a row, I finished my tour in Turkey. It wasn't the plan. It was just the subconscious cherry on top of every European adventure. I would use my Euro pass until I would use it for the $100 boat ride from Italy to Greece. I'd have my Euro pass expire in Greece, and then I'd hang out on the islands where you don't want a Euro pass ticking away anyways, because there's no trains on the islands. Then I would go from the islands to the Turkish mainland, and I'd finish off my summer in Europe with a cultural flourish in Turkey before I would take the long train from Istanbul all the way back to Frankfurt to catch my cheap flight home. I didn't realize a cheap flight in and out of Frankfurt back then was not really a smart flight, because I could have spent $100 more to fly into Frankfurt and home from Istanbul, open jaws, rather than save $100 and then at the end of my trip spend that $100 to sit on a miserable train ride for 48 hours to go from Istanbul to Frankfurt. So now I spend a little more money to get the economic and smart trip, which is open jaws into one city and out of another city. But I've always loved Turkey. And then I met a tour guide, Melika Saval, who was just, she's passed away, bless her heart, but she really was an inspiration, one of the greatest, most passionate tour guides I've ever met. And I just trusted her with our Turkey program, and she got it off the ground. Now we've met Lali and Tan, who run SRM Travel in Turkey, and they carry on the legacy of Melly. I suppose if I met somebody like Melly or Lali and Tan in Morocco, I would do tours there also. I was just recently in Egypt in the Holy Land,
And every time I go there, I think I'd love to do tours here, but those regions are too unpredictable, and I don't want to abuse the trust people have in me. I don't know the Holy Land in Egypt well enough to do a good job. So I would just rather recommend great guides in countries like that, which we do in our program.
I love it, Rick. The cherry on top of any European experience is Turkey. That's beautiful.
It really is.
Next question comes from Scott. He's wondering, what would you tell someone who's non-religious as to why they should visit places of worship in their travels?
I just think there's something deep down inside of every human being that wants to get to know his or her maker. And, I suppose you can decide that you're just there is no maker, but I think it's a fascinating issue. And I feel like we're just in a little maze and we don't really know what the truth is. And depending on our culture, we have religious cultures that help us get closer to God. Now, I'm just fascinated by that. And everywhere I travel, I like to study how people in that culture get close to God. I make a point, by the way, of always respecting the different religious beliefs, as far out as they may seem to me. I'm careful never to judge them, because who am I to be able to judge what 1 billion with a B Muslims think? They know what their holy scriptures teach them and what the cultural context is for them, and I don't. I happen to be a Lutheran. Why is that? My parents came from Norway and everybody up there is Lutheran. It's just, we are a result of our cultural upbringing. And in your travels, it really carbonates the experience, if I could use one of my favorite words, to wherever you are, learn about the local religion and check out the great places of worship in that country.
Speaking of cultural differences a little bit, Rick, we had a lot of questions about women traveling and in these Islamic side trips. Do you think it's okay for women to travel alone in these places?
Yes, it is okay for women to travel alone in Islam, but you've just got to be sensitive and respectful to the local standards. A lot of Americans are very judgmental of a society where women wear a scarf. In Islam, women have the right to choose to wear a scarf or not. I've talked to a lot of women about this in Islam, well-educated women in universities in many countries. It's a fascinating topic for me. And I've gained a respect for the fact that in Islam, a lot of women would rather not have men leering at them, and they dressed very modestly. And then if a Western woman goes to Cairo and dresses in a provocative way, like she might in France, you will be misunderstood, and it can actually be dangerous. So you could be upset with that and not go there and be just disgusted with a culture like that. And good, that's your option. But I'd rather go with the culture's style, respect it, understand it, and fit in. And in that case, you can travel safely in these countries. How would I know? I'm not a woman, I don't know, but I've talked to a lot of women about this. Women who are good travelers have no trouble traveling in Islam as a solo traveler if they know what they're doing.
Yeah, very good tips, Rick. We saw that clip earlier where you were told not to film that police station there. And one of our viewers were curious, very often do you have any issues filming?
We have issues all the time filming. I mean, it's a constant battle. People telling us, can't shoot this, can't shoot that. And we just have to live with it. On occasion, we fight it, because I want to show security in Cairo. They don't know what my mission is. I don't blame them for not wanting a camera in their face. But I'm a journalist in a sense, and I'm telling people, Egypt's great, but it's got some security issues, and I want to show that. So it's always very dicey to shoot any sort of security, and we don't do it very often, but in Egypt we did. We have to be respectful. Of course, if people want some privacy, we don't video them. If anybody just says like this, that's fine. There's other people to shoot. But we find that we can pretty much, because we're doing a respectful job. We're not 60 minutes looking to nail somebody on some expose. We're just celebrating the culture, and we're very respectful in our treatment of the art and the religion and the way people are living. And I'm a little bit aggressive in getting that footage that I need, even if it means occasionally sneaking a shot.
Very smart, very smart. As you are familiar with, Rick, the borders between the Islamic world and the European world have changed quite a bit over the years, and the two have influenced each other. If someone doesn't have time maybe to travel to these Islamic side trips, are there any Islamic sites or side trips in Europe that you would really recommend?
You can learn about Islam
all over Europe. I mean, Granada is, I think, in the EU, sort of the capital of Islamic Europe. Granada in southern Spain. It's the only mosque that's been built in Europe, I think, in 500 years. In Paris, there's a lot of Muslims, and there's Muslim quarters there. There's a lot of marketplace, just like we have Mexican culture in the United States. In Europe, they have Muslim culture, which is the cheap labor. Rich countries invite people from south of the border in because rich people don't want their kids to be picking the apples. You want somebody from south of the border who will do it for half the money. That's just the way it is. I don't think it's necessarily fair, but it's the way it is. And in Europe, the equivalent of the Hispanic migrant worker is the Muslim worker coming in from Northern Africa. So there's a lot of that. And they happen to be the poorest people because they're the people picking the cherries, So you'll see that a lot in Europe. But I would say if you're interested in Muslim culture, go to Morocco, go to Palestine, go to Turkey, and there you'll learn a lot. You have one day with a guide in Cairo, you can learn so much about Muslim faith and Muslim culture.
Yeah, and it's really, as we've learned, not that far away.
Yeah.
We have time for just one more question, Rick. People really enjoy these face montages like the one we saw tonight. Do you have any tips for people watching while traveling?
That's a good question. I just love to be out on the streets. I like to be out on the streets where the local people go. And in so much of Europe and even beyond what we've been seeing today, there are streets where everybody is. And it's hot in the day and people are working hard. They don't want to go home and be all sweaty in a little cramped apartment with the same people that they're always with. They want to spend some time spreading their wings, out, strolling, checking in with their neighbors. And I want to be there right with them. You can sit and have a cup of tea and watch them, or you can get out there and stroll with them. But if you like the passeggiata in Italy, you like the paseo in Spain, you can have the same thing in Istanbul or Ramallah or Luxor or Marrakesh. And that's really, I love the museums, I love the great architecture, but there's nothing like walking down the main boulevard when it is packed. The big boulevard in Istanbul is Iskandar Kadasi, and there's a tram line right there. And for a good part of every day, the tram just doesn't even go. It just can't go through all the people. It's so crowded with people. And to be there strolling Iskandar Kadasi is one of my great thrills in Istanbul. And it doesn't involve paying admission or anything like that. It's just being on the street with all the people. Ben, thank you for those questions. Thank you all for joining us today. I want to remind you that every Monday we get together. And next Monday, we're going to go to my favorite castles and favorite palaces in Europe. The Monday after that, we're going to be joined by Colin Mears, one of my favorite Scottish tour guides. And we're going to go to Scotland with Colin. He's going to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to join us. That'll be a lot of fun. And then we're going to take a month off. We're going to take August off, and we're going to hit the ground running when we get back in September. So we've got lots of travels coming your way. I want to thank you very much. And I think I'd like to close out with some more bloopers. I just love to screw up because it reminds me you can't make good TV without making mistakes. It's the same thing with good travel. When we get over there, we just have a good time. We flub away. I don't care how many mistakes you make. Just keep having a good time. Let's look at some bloopers here, and then we'll see you next Monday.
How do you like the onion soup?
I love it. With layers of cheese on top. It's wonderful.
Oh, come on. Tell me the honest truth.
I just don't like it.
I hear it. Do you hear it? They are talking.
Come on, Marianne. Come on, Marianne. Marianne. Boom, 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 boom. Marianne. Okay. Are we ready?
Anytime.
Let's go. He discovered the light, which inspired in him an explosion of creativity. Aristocrats from London to Moscow flocked to France's funny, sunny, the quintessential image of luxuriating on a beach here in Europe. It's just, you see who's driving that? It's a 3-year-old driving it. Hi. I'm held hostage in the French Riviera. Release me tomorrow, please.